Hey everybody, this is David Warner with another M365.video SharePoint short. Today we're going to talk about list formatting development and how we can automate the deployment of our definitions. We're going to start by looking at the benefits of using an automated development deployment process. We're also going to see what the best file and folder structure is for us to create a process for that. We're going to examine what utility files we need that will support that automated deployment. And then we're going to take a look at a preview of what the part 2 of this series will include around configuring Visual Studio Code. Let's start by looking at the non-automated development deployment process. It's a little cumbersome and it's not real difficult. It's just that when you're working within VS Code, you're editing, and you should work within VS Code because you get all the IntelliSense. You make edits, you select all, you copy, you Alt-Tab over to your browser, you paste into the list column or the view, and then you refresh, and then you go back, make edits, go back into the browser, and you can see it can be a little annoying. With site columns, you then have to go directly into the site column, paste it, tell it whether to propagate, then go to another browser tab to see the results within your list. It can be a little annoying. There's definitely a better way. Now let's look at the benefits of an automated development deployment process. No copy and paste needed. You're working directly within Visual Studio Code, and you can just execute a command that tells it to go deploy out the list, view, or site column definition. And if you're using a site column definition, then you can get that propagation. You can tell it to go ahead and deploy it to all the lists, and then you just need to go into your browser, refresh your list, and you'll see your results. So over the course of this video series, we're going to look at an automated development deployment process that we can use. First thing we're going to look at is how we can set up our files and folder structure that will provide the best organization to automating the definition deployment out to our SharePoint columns and lists. We're going to see how we can use PowerShell templates that are scoped directly to the right list, column, and view names, so we ensure that they're actually being deployed to the correct places. And then we're going to see how to create Visual Studio Code custom tasks to support the deployment of those list formatting definitions. The first thing I'll typically do when getting ready to develop a new list formatting definition that I want to utilize automated deployment with is set up my file structure. So here is a template that I use when I'm developing a new list formatting definition. We can see I've got a PowerShell folder and a Json Definitions folder. We'll look at the PowerShell folder first. It just simply includes all the PowerShell scripts that I need to deploy any of the types of list formatting definitions that I may create. So we've got a list column that supports all the columns that are created directly within a list. The other is a site column, so this is if I want to provide a definition directly to a site column and have it propagate down to all lists that are using that. And then there's a list view script here, and that's used for updating the view definition on any list where I want to provide that list formatting enhancement. The next is a Json Definitions. This is where I'll include a separate JSON file for any list or view or column formatting that I'm doing. So we see that in this demo, we're going to create a task status column definition. We'll apply that to both the list view and the site column. And then I've got a task view file, and that is going to be applied as a view definition for a list that uses tasks. Now we're going to examine all of the contents of these files together during the course of the demo, but if you'd like a copy of this template, I'll provide a link to GitHub at the end where you can download one to use for yourself. So I've opened up that folder structure here in Visual Studio Code. Let's take a quick moment and analyze the contents of our PowerShell scripts as well as our Json definitions. We'll start by looking at the PowerShell scripts. So let's go ahead and open up our folder. As mentioned, we have 3 scripts here to utilize, one for list columns, site columns, and list view. So we'll start by looking at the list column file. This is a very simple PowerShell script. There are many ways to make it more elegant, but for purposes of the demo, I'm going to go ahead and keep it simple. If we start at the top here and examine our contents, we begin with a few variables, and it just defines the site URL, username, password, list name. This is the list that we want to update. This is the column that we want to update. And then this is a link to our JSON definition file. We can see that it's using a relative reference because we know it's stored directly there within the actual folder structure itself. Now it's important to note that these variables are very specific to what they're doing. They're connecting to a specific list, a specific column, a specific definition file. Same goes for the list view PowerShell script and the site column, which means that you'll have to have a copy of these PowerShell scripts for each column or view or list that you want to make changes to from a list formatting perspective. You could certainly make a much more dynamic version of this PowerShell script For the purposes of this demo video series, I just kept them very simple. It's easy to duplicate, update the column name or the definition file name, but you certainly could make it more elegant, make them dynamic, values passed in from somewhere or another, or they populate at the time of execution. The rest of the file just simply connects here to our SharePoint site, and then we take the information from the variables and we actually use it. So our column formatting JSON, we get the content from our file. We make a connection to our field in the list here, and then we apply the definition to the actual column formatter property on the actual list column. And then we just let our output know that the column formatting definition has been updated. Again, very simple, lots of other ways to do this, but for my purposes of the demo and how to automate deployment, works great. The rest of the files are all a version of the same concept. So in the case of a site column, we simply do the same connection. We make the same connection to our SharePoint site, we capture our column formatting JSON, and then we connect to the actual site column and update it. The one flag I do include, which is optional, is update existing lists. That allows us to update all lists that are using that site column. And then the list view file is, again, the same concept. It connects to SharePoint, it connects to the view on a specific list, and it updates the view formatting definition for that view within that list. Now let's go ahead and take a quick look at our JSON files. We'll go ahead and close our PowerShell Script files, close that folder, and open up our definitions. So as mentioned, we're going to go ahead and create a column definition for a column formatting enhancement, and then we're going to create a view definition for the view within a list. So let's look at the column definition JSON. It's a very simple definition. It's very similar to one that's in the GitHub sample repository. It simply looks at a task status based on its value and applies a icon here and a background color depending on the task status. So it's very simple. We're going to deploy it automatically using some Visual Studio goodness here that we're going to see in a moment. And then the task view is actually the same thing. It's going to utilize and put that information on two different rows. So it's going to take the task title and then the task status, provide a color to them, as we can see here, and then we're going to just put them on two different lines within the view formatting enhancement. One thing to note too is my naming convention for my files. You'll notice that I give it a list formatting .column definition or list formatting .view definition .task view .task status. Those are the names of the actual view or the actual name of the column that I'm working with. This is really just a preference, but allows me to have at a quick glance knowing exactly what it is that that file does. All right, so in this video, we've seen how to set up our environment. We've created a Json Definitions folder, which include any and all JSON definition files that we want to deploy out to SharePoint. We've created a PowerShell folder that includes PowerShell scripts that will connect to those lists and columns within SharePoint and deploy our list formatting definitions, whether it be for columns or views. In the next video, we're going to see how we can set up Visual Studio Code to automatically deploy them for us. Typically what we'd do is we'd edit our column definitions or our view definitions here in Visual Studio. We'd benefit from the IntelliSense, which is fantastic. And then we'd select it, copy it, Alt-Tab over to the browser, paste it in, preview it or save it, and then keep doing that over and over. It's a little cumbersome. So we're going to set up Visual Studio Code to dynamically and automatically deploy all of that out for us. Thanks for watching my video today. Here are some useful links on list formatting, as well as the link to the part 2 in the video series. Thanks for watching.